awesome.
Why are you in America? You're in America. You moved. Why are you?
Travel. Yeah, there's
Is that just
two big reasons.
Okay.
You really want to know?
I absolutely want to know.
Okay, two. One, it was prophetically. Nick, God spoke to Nick,
Okay.
and I for a year bucked it. So that was a submission. That is a real sign. Like you know, there's only been a couple of things in our marriage where he's like,
For sure.
for
You
sure,
gotta do
and
it.
this is
Right.
one of those. Because there was no way I never wanted to come. I would have gone to Europe, not just because I love Santorini and the Greek islands, but you know, but I give me heathens. Like I love lost the Christian bubble subculture. Just never did it for me. Yeah. But the Lord also, before we left, spoke to me and said, Christine, I said, do you do this with this what you want? But he said, I'm going to take you to the top of the totem pole so that you can deconstruct the totem pole and tell everyone the emperor's not wearing any clothes. This Christian celebrity subculture thing is not real. And I feel, and 7 years ago when we moved here, I said I was having dinner with someone, and I said, I'll just say this much, I said American evangelicalism as we know it is being deconstructed as we sit here. That person laughed at me, and I'm thinking 7 years later, the shaking and the way things have all happened and what's going on around us now, it is God. The Bible says in Hebrews, only those things that can be shaken will be shaken, so that those things that cannot be shaken will remain. This is the best thing that's ever happened to the American church, as much as people don't like it, but the shaking that's happening, it's separating the sheep and the goats, the wheat and the tares that have been growing together. God is separating them. So now I'm in my sweet spot. We get to do real Christianity. Like this is, let's go kick devil butt. And this is like what we were born for. So I'm actually really excited. And so now I feel like I'm really going to come into my own in the American church. For
You've
what
been here
I'm
for how long?
7 years.
7 years.
This is July is the 7th year.
July is 7. July.
Year of
It's
completion.
7. It's the year of completion, and the 8th year was always going to be the significant year. The fact that I'm still here is a miracle of God. The devil has tried to kill me. It has been, you know, because the Christian culture here was so different for me and for my kind, because when my primary gifts would be evangelistic, prophetic and apostolic, and then pastoral and teaching. And so the American church has been predominantly based on the pastoral and teaching gift. And so why there hasn't been the explosion, the gifts that explode the church, that grow the church, are the ape gifts, the apostolic, prophetic, evangelistic. So when you've silenced them for a long time, the church, when it's just teachers and pastors, we love everyone and we keep teaching the intellect, but the explosion growth gifts in the book of Acts are the evangelistic, the apostolic and the prophetic. And that's what you're seeing. It's coming back around in the American church, and you need that for the lost, because you've got to be light in darkness and to truly be potent and to be different, to be in the world but not of it. See, the church was we were of the world but not in it. We created a separate artificial social construct here called the church, totally separated from the world. And we just said, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't. But we were gossipers and slanderers and liars and cheaters.
But we said we were praying for people.
Of course, praying for people, but we gossip. And jealousy and lust and greed and envy. So instead of being in it but not of it, we were of it but not in it. So now God has separated all of that. So really, what the authentic church will be in the world but not of it. Now we're going to look like peculiar people. Now we're going to look weird. Now we will really be persecuted for our faith. Because to be a true Christ follower now, without Christian culture, we're going to see what's going to happen, because we will be ridiculed. Now we will understand what it means that the cross is foolishness to those that are perishing, not a trendy little symbol around our neck. And we're going to know to actually have some absolute standards in a very relative world. We're going to look like we're idiots and we're fools, to absolutely be countercultural. The persecution will now start in that sense. So to be ostracized, to be marginalized, but this is what we were born for. In a good way. I'm not like, and
you're not depressed about it.
Not at all. Yeah. This is what we're here to equip the saints to not be depressed, to have the joy in the midst of it. And unsaved people themselves, they want a message. They love radical truth. Like the people that are in my world that are not Christians do not want me to compromise. They might not agree with me, but they don't want me to become like them. They're like, really, Christine, stay who you are. Yeah, exactly.
Just thinking about raising girls and talking about where the generation is going and just the tough, just you got to be able to stand. But raising girls, which I think we're raising pretty safe families. I mean, you're on the road, they get to see it, they're a part of it, but it's not necessarily their experience. And so just where or what's the prayer, or what are your words, just for how they get that same strength and that same commitment, or
To
just
the Lord, you mean?
to the Lord, and that same just boldness, and just not because they haven't been broken or crushed, or just where do you?
It is good, and I mean I'm very tender to church kids, because my kid, although my story was so dramatic, my kids are like your story. They're born, they're pastors' kids now. That's and I don't want them to go through that kind of same thing. Catherine came home to me after Hillsong Conference, the youth conference this year, and she said to me, "Mummy," and I could tell she was really serious. She goes, "Mummy, can God use someone like me?" And I said, "Why, Katie?" She goes, "Because the youth preacher, that was preaching today was telling their story, and it was another story like mine, and she goes, and you've got such a powerful story, and my kids have been hearing it since they were born. So can God use somebody like me?" And I mean, I was on that like white on
What'd
rice.
you say?
I just got, I go, "Look, honey," I said, "Yes," and I had a really good conversation. I said, I said, "I don't want you to ever have to go through anything." And I said, "I've wondered the same thing." I said, "My story was so dramatic. Mummy encountered Jesus in such a radical way because of what happened to me." And I said, "But the same Jesus," I said, you don't have to need to have gone through what I went through in order to do that, but you're going to have to find Jesus. And I said, you will be a lot more whole. I said, because it's taken me to this stage of my life in some areas to be as whole as you are now at your age because of what I've gone through. So I said, your deal, Catherine, is you're going to have to lay a hold of God, whatever it takes for you to encounter the reality of a tangible encounter with Jesus Christ yourself. I said that, and I go, the road to that is not through brokenness. The road to that is through the Spirit of God. I said, that's not the deal.
That's a real thing. I mean, I remember
I felt
feeling
that way. I felt that way.
We went to a Christian school, so we were in the 8th grade, and I would listen to the man who got saved by the toilet. He was all, he just talked. I remember. Yes. And I remember sitting there, and I think that's why I got saved like 7 times. Because I've always felt like, oh, well, I got to rededicate. Okay, well, maybe I wasn't saved the first time. I felt that. Now, I have my own story now, but I think a lot of people who are raised in the church feel that way. Can God use me if I don't have a tragic life, death, light, dark?
My help, and this is that we're part of a local church where a ton of pastors' kids, because my kids are a generation after them, have come through without a crazy life story, involved actively in church, changing the world and radically going for God. So how I'm doing it with my girls is positioning them in those environments. So they're role models even more than me. I'm their mother, but in terms of their faith journey with Jesus, are people who are pastors' kids who didn't go through a crazy road, but found such fulfillment through serving in the youth ministry, through being involved in a dynamic church, through being involved with real normal people. But we didn't have to go, okay, I'm going to go do drugs and do alcohol and do this, and so that I can have my own journey. And I'm watching Catherine, and the biggest gift we've done for our kids is made sure we position them in that environment, whatever the cost is to Nick and I. Yeah, she's 15 and Sophia's 11, nearly 12. And so
you said whatever the cost, because there's been a cost.
A major cost for us to rearrange our life, our schedule, our finances, everything, to make sure that I position them in that environment to fly back from wherever I have to make sure that they're at youth, to do whatever it takes, even taking them last night to Motion, to those kind of environments where I know there's loads of pastors' kids that are 5 or 10 years older than Catherine, that have not gone down a certain path, that are loving God, that have got their own faith journey with Jesus. I need my kids at this stage to be seeing it even more than, they don't even quite know what my testimony means, other than not the detail of what would be behind that, but they know Mum was really messed up and look what happened. So I need them to have female role models that are not that have come through with Jesus, that are flourishing with Jesus, and so that then their story can be like, you know what, that you can come through the end of this. Like there's so many tragedies with pastors' kids. So ministry kids or kids, you're going to be like, yes, I'm telling them, no, but you're not.
Oh,
here's the point, you're actually not.
I know. I'm just saying, it's actually, it's funny, because I was thinking the other day, people want to talk about all this, and they want to ask all these hard questions.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't really see it that way. But people kind of, and they will ask.
They want
me,
to go
they'll
for
say-
the tragedy. They're
They go
fishing
for the
for-
tragedy. So they'll say, so what do you think was hard about being a pastor's kid? And I'm like,
It was actually all right.
It was-
Our parents
yeah.
had integrity.
yeah. I mean, there's no dirt.
Yeah.
I don't have any dirt for you. I mean, the best that I have is that Adam and Eve had the best parent ever, and they made their own choice. And everybody makes their own choice. But there's not this
No.
terrible.
Secret
Like
double.
daddy didn't fail us. He didn't have this double life.
No.
It was just.
That's what Catherine, she goes, Mum, why wouldn't you want to be a PK? I just feel so sorry for everyone that's, and I go, look, I wanted it. I wanted them to grow up and go, no, this is not like some. And I've never done the big, I'm going to separate, family minute. Well, it would be ridiculous because we're on the road together all the time. So it's like, we're going to turn this into a win.